Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my week number 15. It's playoff time, baby. Wide receiver, start or sit decisions. Now, I know some people, if you're in a 10-team league, you might not actually start the playoffs until next week, but it's essentially playoff time. But before we break down all of these games in depth at the wide receiver position, and I tell you whether I will start or sit all of these wide receivers, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, then please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton if you want to follow me on Twitter. Oh, I pointed the wrong way. Please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. Today's video is being brought to you guys by DraftKings Sportsbook. We're going to be talking about it a little bit later. They have a great offer for you, but without further ado, let's get into my week number 15 wide receiver start or sit decisions. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the San Francisco 49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. Now, in this matchup, the 49ers are going to be without Deebo Samuel, and they're likely to be without Deebo Samuel for the remainder of the season. There is still, though, some potential that he comes back during the playoffs, depending on how far the 49ers end up making it. So, even though they did end up losing Deebo Samuel, the biggest takeaway from that game is that Brock Purdy is really fucking good. Now, maybe defenses are going to figure out Mr. Irrelevant. That is definitely possible, but he absolutely carved up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers like they were a Thanksgiving turkey. And again, while the Buccaneers defense, I talk about this a lot all year long, while they haven't been the defense that they've been the last couple of years, they still have a pretty decent defense, and I thought they'd be able to subdue anything that Brock Purdy could do, and frankly, that was completely wrong. Now, without Deebo Samuel, I think we're to see a hefty load of Brandon Ayuk in this matchup up against a pretty alright Seattle Seahawks defense. I have said all year that they are pretty underrated, and I still stick with that sentiment, but again, they're still not like a top 10, top 5 defense in the NFL. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are must-starts every single week. Now, this matchup up against the 49ers is incredibly tough, so I highly doubt that both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are going to be able to smash in this game, Hulk smash, have that top 5 game, but the upside is always there with them, and Geno Smith has been playing incredibly well all season long, while Deebo Samuel is going to be gone. I don't really think that Juwan Jennings and Ray McCloud are going to contribute heavily into filling that crater-size hole that Deebo Samuel is going to leave. I think that we're going to end up seeing a lot more George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey targets, as well as obviously Brandon Ayuk. So while Deebo being gone might open some people's eyes to, ooh, let's get sneaky and pick up Juwan Jennings or Ray McCloud, I honestly think that's a little bit foolish. Marquise Goodwin is going to every once in a while have a good game. He played relatively solid last week up against the Carolina Panthers, but here up against a really stout 49ers defense, I don't really see him being start worthy. Next up, we got the Indianapolis Colts at the Minnesota Vikings. Now, despite the fact, and this game's actually also on Saturday, important to note, we have 3 games on Saturday this week. Now, again, back to what I was saying, despite the fact that the Minnesota Vikings have one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL, I don't trust Matt Ryan worth anything. I understand that maybe some people will play Michael Pittman because he's a safe option and he should get a decent amount of targets and the matchup is good. I understand that. And go right ahead if you have to. But ultimately, this list of wide receivers that are listed as starts, there's around 36 wide receivers that are starts this week. And that just goes to show how little confidence I have in Michael Pittman Jr. The player is fucking amazing. It's just I don't trust Matt Ryan. Same thing goes with Alec Pierce and Paris Campbell. I think they're all talented players. The situation is just gross. Justin Jefferson is obviously a must-start every single week. The Colts defense isn't amazing, nor is it absolute dick cheese. I think Justin Jefferson should have a big game. Adam Thielen has been pretty hit or miss all season long. He continues to see an ass load of targets game in and game out. The question is he going to be able to turn those targets into a productive game? He did that last week up against the Lions. We shall see what happens up against the Colts, but again, he is relatively safe due to the amount of targets that he sees game in and game out, as well as how good this Minnesota Vikings offense looks. Next up, we move to the second Saturday game, the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. Right now, as I'm recording this on Tuesday, it is pretty up in the air who the starting quarterback is going to be for the Ravens on Sunday. I would be shocked if it's Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley ended up getting hurt in that game, so it might end up being Anthony Brown as the starting quarterback of the team. So if that's the case, obviously you want to stay clear away from the Ravens receivers regardless. In my opinion, I don't want anything to do with DeMarcus Robinson, Devin Duvernay, or Deshaun Jackson. And you know your wide receiver core is down bad if in 2023, Deshaun Jackson is the third guy I'm listing as your third best receiver. For the Browns, Deshaun Watson definitely looked much better in last week's game, and I think he's going to continue to build on that as the season goes along, and then I honestly think next year he could be in consideration to be a top 5 quarterback in all of fantasy football. This matchup up against the Baltimore Ravens is incredibly good. Amari Cooper should be able to have a very solid game here, as well as Donovan Peoples-Jones. I obviously like Amari Cooper more, and we talked a lot about this season, that Amari Cooper's home road splits are pretty crazy. At home, he's much better, and this game is in Cleveland. Donovan Peoples-Jones is also a solid start as well. David Bell is going to be a sit for the Cleveland Browns. Next up, we got my Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. Now, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant real quick about the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Miami Dolphins, going into Sunday Night Football, I have zero doubt last week that we had any chance of losing to the Chargers. The Chargers defense is hurt. The Chargers defense is absolutely fucking atrocious. And Tua Tagovailoa, while he played bad against the 49ers, I thought he was going to figure it out, brush it off. The monkey is going to hop off the back. He's going to be perfectly fine. He's going to go into LA and absolutely butt-fuck that defense, 50 Shades of Grey style, sodomize those bastards, and it's going to be light work. It's going to be a highlight reel level fucking game for him, and he shits the bed when the lights shine the brightest. He played absolutely atrocious. The Dolphins, whose defense was on the field the whole fucking game, basically stood on their heads, and I know that play at the end of the first half was absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what the fuck Josh Boyer is thinking, putting the whole defense on the 1-yard line. What are you guys doing? What are you doing? Why are you letting Austin Eckler run 14 yards free? There's no one even near him. It makes no fucking sense. But now we got the Buffalo Bills in what might be 7 inches of fucking snow. If the Miami Dolphins lose this game, which I think they will, Now, the bias in me tells me, Nick, the Dolphins are going to figure this shit out. I don't know if they will. Tua continues to, instead of throwing the safe route, oh, there's a guy open in the middle. No, this motherfucker thinks he's playing Madden and wants to throw the ball 40 yards deep down the field to Tyreek Hill. Slow the fuck down, Tua, and do what you were doing best against these garbage-ass teams. Throw the ball accurately right into the receiver's hands and let them do what they do. You don't have to throw a 40-yard fucking bomb every single play, and it really frustrated me. If this game is really snowy like it's projecting, I am pretty worried about all of the receiving options in this game, but obviously you'd be kind of crazy to sit Tyreek Hill. The guy picked up a fumble and ran 90 yards. It wasn't actually 90 yards, but you get what I mean. Picked up a fumble, ran for a touchdown. Scored a long touchdown from Tua as well. Waddle has been down bad. If you actually look at the stats, it's pretty interesting. When the Dolphins decide not to use Jalen Waddle as much, the team loses every single fucking time. So let's hope that he gets more involved here up against the Bills. Diggs is a must start. Gabe Davis is one of those guys that I talk about every single week. You start him, you understand the risk that you are getting into when you start Gabe Davis. You understand that this guy might score 4 points, but he also has the upside to score 25 points. You're really never going to play Gabe Davis and he gets 13 points. You're like, oh, wow. Great job, Gabe Davis. No, he's either going to score 4 or fucking 25, and that's just what you have to accept when you're playing the Dolphins' defense is Dick Cheese, so I think Diggs and Davis could have a big game. Trent Sherfield is a sit. The team for the Bills did bring in Cole Beasley. I'm not too sure how good to go he's going to be on Saturday, but that obviously throws a damper into what could have been a great end of the season for Isaiah McKenzie. Next up, we move to the beginning of the Sunday slate with the game everyone is excited to watch, the Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints. We'll keep this game short and sweet here. Now, normally when I say let's keep things short, we make a joke about Kyler Murray, but I hope Kyler Murray is okay. Right now, it really feels like he tore his ACL. I like Kyler Murray a ton. I make a lot of jokes about him because they're low-hanging fruit. They're funny jokes you can make about him very easily. But at the end of the day, I hope the guy's okay. He is one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league after all. Chris Olave is a start here. The Falcons' defense is fucking dust. They are terrible. So Chris Olave should be able to have a good game. But for some reason, Dennis Allen's dumbass continues to start. He's like, oh, Andy Dalton's the guy this week. Andy Dalton is the guy? Come on, man. The Falcons going from Marcus Mariota to Desmond Ridder. Let's see how this works. The Saints defense isn't amazing, but I'm just going to leave these guys on the bench. Like, you weren't really starting Drake London with confidence anyways. With Marcus Mariota, maybe he makes things better, though. That being Desmond Ridder, meaning that maybe he's going to be able to fix everything. I don't think he will be able to, but we shall see. We shall see. Drake London, Drizzy Drake London, Olamide Zacchaeus, Damiere Byrd, Caw is a sit. Jarvis Landry and my boy Rashid Shaheed, who's going to catch like a 50-yard missile from Andy Dalton in this game. He does like every single week and then does nothing after it, but it's always fun to see him show up on the screen, because normally that means that they just move the ball really quickly down the field. Chris Olave is a start again. No one else is in this game. Before we move on in to the rest of the games here at the wide receiver position, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at DraftKings Sportsbook. If you're a brand new user to DraftKings Sportsbook, you click on the link in the video description or in the pinned comment down below. You will get a great offer from DraftKings Sportsbook. If you bet $5 on any sport pregame money line from now until the end of December 30th, you will receive $150 in free bets if your team wins. Note how I said if your team wins. So since your team has to win, I'm going to throw it on the screen right now. After you sign up using the link in the video description, you're going to navigate to the top left, click on college basketball, and then you're going to pick the largest favorite. College basketball has the largest favorites available right now. Texas Tech minus 2,100 versus Eastern Washington. Lock that in, bet $5 on them, and you receive $150 in free bets as long as they win. Also important to note, if you live in Maryland, you will actually receive $200 in free bets, so even more of a reason to sign up if you live in Maryland. Next up, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Carolina Panthers, and Mono Man Sam Darnold is on one. Sam Darnold carved up the Seattle Seahawks defense. Sam Darnold, Mono Man Sam, is looking good. Now, I'm not sure he revived his career, but we shall see. Wiki DJ Moore is going to be a start as long as he plays. He got hurt last week. We shall see what happens with him. That's something to monitor as we get closer to Sunday. Deontay Johnson and George Pickens are both starts, but they are bottom of the barrel starts. The Panthers defense, again, while Geno Smith looked good against them, there's a big difference between Geno Smith and probably Mitch Trubisky, who's going to be starting in this game. Now, Deontay Johnson just gets a bunch of targets every single game, which makes him start worthy, but he's not a guy that I can rely on worth anything, because even with all the targets, he still somehow fails to finish outside the top 32 at the wide receiver position basically every single week, regardless of if it's a cupcake easy matchup or it's an incredibly tough defense that he's playing against. I do trust George Pickens slightly more. If George Pickens could make the easy catches, though, he'd be a lot better. He always makes those crazy, like, dive, toe tap, one hand, reach back, Odell Beckham Jr. style. He just needs to work on catching the easy ones. Neither of them are very exciting, though, in my opinion. Terrace Marshall Jr. as well as Laviska Shenault are sits, as well as Steven Sims. Next up, we move to the Philadelphia Eagles at the Chicago Bears in Chicago. Both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith formed an Eiffel Tower over the Giants defense, because that was a fucking massacre. A massacre of sorts against the Giants. Jalen Hurts schlung his cock deep down the throat of the Giants. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith went off. Now, I will talk about this every single week. Both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith have number one wide receiver upside. But the problem is that there are so many cooks in the kitchen in Philadelphia that it is hard to rank both of them inside the top 12, despite the fact that they both have that upside. And it is hard to necessarily rely, like A.J. Brown, despite having two great games in a row, two amazing games in a row, he might not do very well this week, even though this is one of those wet dream, incredibly easy matchup, right? The Bears defense is bottom of the barrel, bottom of the ocean, absolutely atrocious, laughably bad, and yet there's just so many options in Philly. This is likely the return game of Dallas Goedert. So they have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders, who butt-fucked the Giants last week. They have Dallas Goedert now as well. They have Quez Watkins, who is just bound to every couple of games catch some 30, 40-yard strike from Jalen Hurts and score a touchdown. So again, I still like A.J. Brown. I'm still very excited about Devontae Smith, but I just want to make it very clear, make it crystal clear that there is some downside in being in an offense like this, because there's so many options. And then when they get in the red zone, Jalen Hurts could just run it in, which sucks for Brown and Smith, but both of them are must starts, obviously. This is, again, great matchup. Chase Claypool should be the wide receiver 1 for Justin Fields. They are coming off of a bye. I do think Chase Claypool might be sneaky good in the next couple of games, but up against the Eagles defense, no bueno. Equimenius St. Brown, brother of Amon-Ra St. Brown, is a sit. Dante Pettis, former 49er, is a sit. Quez Watkins, like I said, every once in a while is going to have that huge game, or not really a huge game, but that huge catch, that touchdown where he gets like 15 points. But again, very unreliable week in and week out, especially with no one being on bye this week. Like, there's no way you should be starting Quez Watkins. Next up, we got the Kansas City Chiefs at the Houston Texans. Important to note that on Tuesday, I have zero idea who is going to be starting for the Texans. If Cooks and Nico Collins are out yet again, I'm playing Chris Moore this week with confidence. We just saw the Chiefs defense get picked apart by Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited. Mr. Unlimited. The Subway King himself. So, and the Texans just played really good against the Cowboys, and they are reportedly going to continue to go with the double quarterback approach. We're going to see some Davis Money Mills. We're going to see some Jeff Driscoll. Should be interesting. But again, right now, there are so many. There's like a big cloud over this team. Like, who fucking knows if Chris Moore is going to be the guy, or is Brandon Cooks going to come back? Nico Collins going to come back? Very weird situation to kind of understand right now. We'll talk about it more as the week goes on. Juju Smith-Schuster, Mr. Corvette, finally back in the driver's seat last week against the Broncos. I talked him up as a start ever since he came back. I talked about the risk that comes with him, though, because, hey, they might just keep using just the tip technique, right? Where they just ease him in. And then last week against the Broncos, they stuck more than a tip in. They went balls deep into the Broncos with Juju Smith-Schuster. And up against the Texans, should be a great matchup. And if the Texans can keep up, which they probably can't, right? They're not going to leave the game wide open to potentially lose. Like, the Cowboys could easily have lost that game if Lovie Smith didn't call a stupid-ass 4th down play at the end of the game. Like, they easily could have scored and won the game. So, very interesting that the Texans even kept it that close. But again, Juju's really the only guy I want to be starting here. Next up, speaking of the Cowboys, we got the Dallas Cowboys at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are on fucking fire, NBA Jam style. The Jaguars are playing with the permanent game breaker unlocked from NFL Street. If you've ever played that game, that used to be my favorite game as a kid. It was probably just because I was a kid, I thought it was more fun than Madden. It was more cartoonish, but that has nothing to do with anything here. CD Lamb. I thought CD Lamb. Now, my actual thought process last week was the Cowboys might literally torch the Texans, and in the second half of the game, like the Dolphins did, bench their starters. But no. The game was close the whole time. So, if you told me last week, Nick, the Texans actually keep it close, and Dak has CD, they all play the whole game. So I'm thinking, in my head, I would be like, oh, CD scores 3 touchdowns. Not really. He scores a touchdown. He gets 150 yards. He scores 2 touchdowns. He gets 100 plus yards, right? No. CD has a mediocre game up against one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Now, this game, you smell that? You can smell it through the screen. This reeks of shootout. The Jaguars are on one. The Cowboys, I've said on one like 3 times. I don't think I've ever fucking said that in a video. Now I just started saying it. But yeah, the Jaguars are amazing, looking amazing. They're on fire. The Cowboys' offense is great too. Could be a really fun one. So I'm definitely starting Lamb again. Last week was bad, but I think he bounces back. Christian Kirk and Zay Jones are must-starts, in my opinion, at this point of the season, as is CeeDee Lamb. Christian Kirk has some down games, but again, he is still the #1 wide receiver on an offense that's going to have to pass a shit ton up against the Cowboys, and Zay Jones has just been a target hog recently. And I expect Zay Jones to potentially drop his hog into the mouth of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Michael Gallup is going to be a sit, as is Noah Brown. They brought in T.Y. Hilton. If you pick up T.Y. Hilton in your fantasy league, you deserve to fucking lose. Marvin Jones Jr. is going to be a sit as well. Next up, we move to the Detroit Lions at the New York Jumbo Jets. Amon-Ra St. Brown, another one of those guys where if I told you, look, Nick, I thought this was possible. The Lions beat the Vikings. They keep up the whole game. It's a high-scoring affair. What would I have thought? I would have thought Amon-Ra St. Brown would have been a top 3, top 5, top 12 at the very least receiver, and he wasn't. Now, again, I'm not here to harp on the fact that St. Brown had a down game. I'm not here to shit on Amon-Ra because he's one of my favorite receivers. I've watched him grow from last year to this year. He looks amazing. So I'm not here to just drag this guy through the dirt, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown has been incredibly solid, and this week he gets the Jets, and the Jets defense is good, but we just saw the Jets defense get exposed by the Vikings a few weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Last week up against the Bills, that was a really hard-fought game, but that was an in-division game, so those kind of games normally reek of being really close. So here, we got the Juggernaut Lions offense, which is crazy to say. The Juggernaut Lions offense versus one of the best, if not the best defense in the NFL. Should be interesting, but I'm not sitting Amon-Ra St. Brown. You'd be crazy to do that. You would be crazy. Garrett Wilson, down game against the Bills. 2 games prior to that, he was on fire. I'm going to continue to roll him out. Again, the Lions, they have a great offense, but they have an awful defense. So Garrett Wilson should be just fine here. Mike White's health is definitely up in the air. He got fucking speared by Matt Milano. I don't think that was really a dirty hit. I think that was just pretty textbook hit, knocked the wind out of him. It was a tough scene to watch. If Cool Joe Flacco's under center, I don't like Garrett Wilson as much, but I'd probably still start him. DJ Chark is a sit, but he's one of those fringe sits where he's knocking on the door of becoming a start. He just isn't a start. But if you were in a pickle and say you're in like a league where you might have to start, you have 3 receivers and a flex, and Chark's my best option, then of course I'm not going to be mad about that. I think Chark's a decent play, but he just doesn't crack the top 36 parameter. Corey Davis is going to be a sit, as is Elijah Moore. Jameson Williams, interesting, scored a touchdown on his first ever catch in the NFL. He was butt naked, wide open. Let's see his usage going forward, because DJ Chark to me is still the number 2 receiver there. Next up, we move to the Arizona Cardinals at the Denver Broncos. This game actually could have been really interesting because Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, finally turned it on after weeks of everyone making fun of him, me included. I was dogging on Russell Wilson for the first couple of weeks. I was like, oh, he's going to figure it out. Nathaniel Hackett, that stooge bastard, he's going to figure it all out. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about Russell Wilson. And then as the weeks kept ticking on and on and on and on, it was like, how much longer can I defend this guy? And I just stopped defending him. I stopped being positive. I was like, you know what? This is just a disaster. And then last week, in the least probable game ever, where I know the Broncos have good defense, but it was like, I don't think, even though the Chiefs defense isn't that good, like I really don't see Russell Wilson just unleashing it here. And he did. Jerry Jeudy took a dump on the chest of the Chiefs defense. Now, Brett gripping it is going to be under center. So kind of gross for Jerry Jeudy, but I'm still going to start him. Cortland Sutton and Kendall Hinton are going to be sits for me if Sutton ends up playing. I'm just going to go with the hot hand Jerry Jeudy. And now the Cardinals. Kyler was, while he's been kind of up and down all season, he hasn't been bad. Like, he wasn't great for where you drafted him, right? Because when you drafted, or at least when I drafted Kyler, I assumed deep down, while he probably wasn't going to finish as the quarterback one, he has the rushing upside to do so. He more than likely tore his ACL, which sucks. You never root for injuries. You hate to see something like that. I hope that he's able to bounce back next year, because again, I'm a big fan of Kyler Murray. I talked about that a little bit earlier. Hollywood Brown might have been a legitimate league winner that was available on some waiver wires because people cut him. I had him on one of my teams. Cooper Kupp was out for the year. I had Hollywood Brown. My team was on fire. Both of them got hurt. I'm like, okay, Hollywood Brown's coming back. Maybe, just maybe, my team could hit the NOS button like they're playing one of those. If you're ever in a bowling alley and you play like the race car game and you fucking hit the thing twice and your car goes up in the air, you hit the NOS. Fucking, what's that movie called? Fast and Furious, Vin Diesel type deal here. And probably not going to happen now, right? Because Colt McCoy is under center. Colt McCoy. DeAndre Hopkins is still a start because he's DeAndre Hopkins. I think he can still get it done with Colt McCoy, but I just don't trust Hollywood Brown or Greg Dulcich, or not Greg Dulcich, Greg Dortch, or they also have another guy whose name is escaping me, Rondale Moore. It's just a gross situation now without Kyler Murray. Next game here, we got the New England Deflatriots at the, turn your volume down, the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. Devontae Adams is the only wide receiver I want to be touching in this game. Darren Waller might be back. He might not be back. We shall see. Patriots defense looked really good last night up against the Cardinals, But again, the Cardinals had Colt McCoy, but the Patriots defense is still pretty good. Devontae Adams will just be must start every single week. Like, again, regardless of the matchup, he could be going up against prime Deion Sanders, and I'm still going to start him. Jacoby Myers missed last week, might be back this week. Nelson Aguilar will likely be the number 2 receiver because I don't think Devontae Parker is going to play. He did end up, I think, getting a concussion last night, and I don't remember which wide receiver did it, if it was Aguilar or someone else, but Devontae Parker got back up and, like, lined up, and it was like, dude, Devontae Parker is in another realm right now. He got sent to the shadow realm, and this is not, like, trying to make a joke or something, and Kendrick Bourne or Nelson Aguilar went over to him, and he's, like, started, like, waving to the ref, like, hey, pal, stop the fucking game. Devontae probably has a concussion, and they stopped the game. It was very impressive to see a player like that step up for another player's player safety, so I applaud whoever that was. I think it was Kendrick Bourne, but again, I don't want to get it wrong. So it might have been Bourne, might have been Aguilar, but yeah, this Patriots team might butt-fuck the Raiders, but again, I don't trust any of these wide receivers. I just don't. Unless Jacoby Myers plays, then you could start him, but again, it's just such a gross offense, and now Ramondre Stevenson might miss as well. So fucking gross. Matt Collins, Keelan Cole, I'm sitting them down. Next up, we move to the Atlanta Titans at the LA Chargers. Derrick Henry was running a metaphorical train onto the Jacksonville Jaguars. In the first half, the guy had like 100+ yards. He had a touchdown. It was like, that was the easiest thing to predict ever. Easiest thing to predict ever. Derrick Henry owns the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise. And then the second half, everything just goes wrong. He gets like 12 yards in the second half or something. It was just embarrassing. They didn't have Burks, though. Burks should be back this week. Now, I know the Chargers defense just locked up Akon style the fucking Dolphins offense. I don't think that'll be the case, though. I think Treylon Burks should play pretty decent in this spot. I was shocked, perplexed, all types of words to describe that situation. I just don't have any idea how Mike Williams, who was perceived as like 70% going into the game, and even after the game, we actually saw that the team was kind of talking about it, how it was like, oh, he wasn't really fully healthy almost, and he still performed quite well. So very interesting to see. I was someone who was fading Mike Williams like it was my job. I didn't want to trust him. And he paid off. He looked good. He looked healthier than I thought he would. So I'm going to start him against the Titans. Keenan Allen, you're obviously going to start as well. And that kind of moves Joshua Palmer into the sit category. Robert Woods, Nick Westbrook, Ikayin with Treylon Burks should be back in this game. There's really no reason to start Woods or Nick Westbrook. Next up, we move to the Cincinnati Bengals at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers just got their shit pushed in by big cock Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy rolled him up like a blunt and smoked those bastards. It was hilarious to watch. It was incredibly funny because while I was like, ooh, Brock Purdy looked a little sneaky good against the Dolphins defense is dick. It's absolutely terrible. So it's on the road, terrible. At home, they're really good. But away, their defense couldn't stop a fucking nosebleed, right? They can't stop anything. They can't get water out of, if they jumped out of a boat, they couldn't hit water. That's the kind of a defense that they are away. And then Brock Purdy lays down the pipe for that ass like he's fucking Mario, because Mario was a plumber, and Luigi, I think Luigi might have been a plumber as well, but incredible showing out of Brock Purdy. The Bengals are gonna, I don't even know what kind of words you want to use here. The Bengals are going to massacre, slaughter, buttfuck, eviscerate, torch, every word in the dictionary for that. And they don't even have, I don't even think they're going to have T. Higgins or fucking, they're not going to have Tyler Boyd. Trenton Irwin, that's a hilarious, Trenton Irwin's just a funny name. Trent Taylor, doesn't matter. This is going to be a skull fucking is the word I'm going to use. I used to use that term a lot. This is going to be a skull fucking. Jamar Chase should have a huge game. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, I pray to the gods above that Tom Brady does something this game, because Tom Brady looked like he didn't want to be there last week. He even signed someone on the Niners, I think, intercepted him or sacked him. I don't remember really paying too close of an eye to that game. Like, I remember seeing the game. I remember Tom Brady playing like shit, and I remember Brock Purdy fucking him in the ass. But I don't really remember what happened, but something happened where the other player either intercepted or got the ball from Brady. Brady signed the ball for him after. Pretty fucking funny. Like, look, I'm someone who hates Tom Brady. because I'm a Dolphins fan, but at the end of the day, that was just funny. Like, that's like Tom being a veteran, like this old bastard signing the guy's ball after he picked him off. Very, very funny. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, I'm still playing them, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't have very much trust in them. Next up, we move to Sunday Night Football. The Giants at the Washington Commanders. Left hand up. Who are we? The Commanders. Darius Slayton has been relatively decent over the last 4 games. Now, I make all these jokes. Nick, you sound like a broken record. You make this joke every week. I'm going to continue to make the joke. The Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, Danny Fumbles, Danny Stumbles. This bastard's throwing the ball to fucking McDonald's employees, to janitor at your local high school. That's who he's throwing the ball to. So Darius Slayton's just bound to get targets. Chase Young is reported to be back in this game. Yikes. Yikes for Danny Dimes, though I am starting Slayton, but he's one of those bottom-of-the-barrel guys. Terry McLaurin, scary F1 Terry McLaurin. Taylor Heineke should be starting in this game. Carson Wentz apparently back. I think the what's that called? The leash, metaphorically, that is on Heineke is probably pretty long. Like, I don't think they really want to go back to Carson Wentz unless something drastic happened. Knock on wood. Can't root for injuries, because I would rather fucking shoot myself in the head metaphorically, not in reality though, than watch Carson Wentz. So Terry McLaurin, he's a start definitely against the Giants. I'm Rick James, bitch. Ricky James is a sit. Isaiah Hodgins, I think, has scored 2 touchdowns 2 weeks in a row. So a touchdown each game. Very nice for him. Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson are sits. Final game here, Monday Night Football. Baker Mayfield versus the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. The LA Rams, obviously, in Green. Did I say the LA Rams and Baker, or did I just say Baker? It is what it is. We're like 30 minutes into this fucking video. At some point, I'm going to say something wrong. But we got Baker versus Aaron Rodgers. A lot of smoke about Jordan Love leaving. If Rodgers doesn't leave next year, we shall see what happens there. Christian Watson is on a tear. Rodgers might need some more ayahuasca to actually lock in. But at the end of the day, Christian Watson's just been unreal. Unreal every week. And this is something I like to talk about a ton. It is my methodology on riding the hot streak. If a player's hot, keep playing them. It's no brainer. Christian Watson must start for me up against the LA Rams. And Jalen Ramsey, I don't remember who it was, but Jalen Ramsey it was Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams literally put fucking Jalen Ramsey in a box last week. Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek, Tutu Atwell sits. If you had to start one, it would be Van Jefferson for me. Alan Lazard, kind of a fringe start, but don't love him against the Rams. And then Randall Cobb is a sit as well. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying today's video, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Like it owes you somebody. Make sure you hit that like button as well. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm going to be unbanned from Twitter a couple hours from now tonight. We'll have some tweets for you guys, so make sure you follow me on Twitter. Make sure you check out our sponsor of today's video, DraftKings Sportsbook, DK Sportsbook. Bet $5 on any pregame money line. Win $150 in free bets if your team wins again. Texas Tech minus 2,100 versus Eastern Washington for me. And you get $200 if you live in Maryland. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I love you guys all. Hope you all have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy.